The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass orbiting the neutral world below. Inside, representatives from 100 different species sat in a circle, their voices rising and falling like waves. Some had 4 arms, others glowed with inner light, a few floated in tanks of liquid, but all of them wore the same expression on their alien faces: fear. Sat quietly in the human section, his hands folded on the table in front of him. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had seen war before. He had commanded troops on 3 different worlds before becoming Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Coalition. Now he watched the other representatives argue and shout, and he waited. "Another system has fallen," said the speaker at the center of the chamber. Its voice came through a translator device that made it sound flat and emotionless. "The swarm has consumed the colonies. 7 billion lives, gone in 3 days." The chamber erupted in angry voices. A blue-skinned delegate stood up, waving its tentacles. "We must retreat to the core worlds, abandon the outer systems." "Coward," shouted another. "If we keep retreating, there will be no worlds left." "Then what do you suggest?" The tentacled being turned to face the crowd. "We have lost 60% of our military fleet. The breed faster than we can kill them. Every battle costs us ships we cannot replace." Raised his hand. The gesture was small, but the chamber's sensors detected it. A light appeared above his head, indicating he wished to speak. Most of the aliens ignored it. Humans were junior members of the coalition. They had only joined 50 years ago. Their opinion carried little weight. "The chair recognizes the human representative," said the speaker, following protocol. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. Some looked curious. Most looked annoyed. A few looked amused, as if a child had asked to speak at an adult gathering. "Thank you," said. His voice was quiet but clear. "Earth wishes to offer military assistance in this war." Silence fell over the chamber. Then someone laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound that came from a reptilian delegate near the front. "Military assistance." The reptilian stood, its scales glinting under the lights. "Your species has been in space for barely 300 years. You have 40 warships. The swarm has millions. What could you possibly offer?" "Experience," said simply. More laughter rippled through the chamber, the blue tentacled being waved dismissively. "Experience. The collective has fought wars for 10,000 years. They have military records dating back 50. Your species is an infant playing with toys." Reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. He held it up for all to see. "May I share something with the council?" The speaker clicked its mandibles together. "You may." Inserted the chip into the table's interface. The holographic displays around the chamber flickered and changed. Images appeared in the air above each delegate's head. They showed human cities burning, soldiers fighting in muddy trenches, bombs falling from aircraft, ships exploding in naval battles. "This is Earth's 20th century," said. "In a span of just 50 years, humans fought 2 global wars. We killed over 100 million of our own kind. We invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We fought in deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands, and across vast oceans." The images changed. They showed tactical maps, battle strategies, and weapon designs. The aliens watched in growing silence. "We learned how to fight when outnumbered," continued. "We learned how to win when supplies were low. We learned how to break enemy morale and turn their own tactics against them. Most importantly, we learned that war is not about honor or fair combat. War is about winning by any means necessary." "Barbaric," muttered the tentacled delegate. "Yes," agreed. "It is, but effective." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The Coalition fights wars the way civilized species fight. You minimize casualties, you follow rules of engagement, you try to preserve infrastructure and resources. These are admirable goals, but the swarm does not care about your rules. They consume and multiply. They cannot be reasoned with or negotiated with. They are an enemy that must be destroyed completely. The reptilian delegate hissed. Even if what you say is true, your forces are too small. 40 ships cannot turn the tide of this war. Smiled. It was not a warm smile. I said we have 40 warships in the Coalition registry. I did not say that was our entire fleet. Confused murmurs spread through the chamber. The speaker leaned forward. Explain. Earth requested junior member status for a reason, said. We wanted to observe, to learn, to understand how galactic warfare works. We have spent 50 years studying every battle, every tactic, every weapon system used by Coalition forces and by your enemies. He gestured at the holographic displays. We also used that time to prepare. Earth has been building warships for 5 decades, fleets that we kept in our home system, fleets designed specifically to fight enemies like the... How many ships? The question came from a crystalline being that had remained silent until now. 20 complete battle fleets, said. Approximately 8,000 vessels, plus support craft, fighters, and ground forces. The chamber exploded in shocked voices. Delegates stood and shouted. Some accused humans of lying. Others demanded to know why Earth had hidden this information. A few looked genuinely frightened. The speaker slammed a limb against its desk, creating a loud bang that echoed through the chamber. Order, order. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. Ambassador, this is a serious claim. Can you provide proof? I can do better than that, said. One of our battle groups is already en route to. They should arrive in approximately 6 hours. You can observe their combat performance and decide for yourselves if humanity can help in this war. You sent ships without authorization. The tentacled being's color shifted to angry purple. This is a violation of Coalition law. No, said calmly. Coalition law states that junior members cannot deploy military forces in Coalition space without permission, but has already fallen to the... It is no longer Coalition space. Therefore, no law is being broken. The reptilian delegate laughed again, but this time it sounded different. There was respect in it and perhaps a hint of fear. Clever. Tell me, Ambassador, how many ships are in this battle group? 40 vessels, said, including our carrier Indomitable, commanded by Captain. The battle group is under the overall command of Admiral. The blue tentacled being shook its head. 40 ships against a swarm that just consumed 7 worlds. Your commanders are fools. They will die for nothing. Sat down slowly. He looked tired suddenly, older than his years. Perhaps, he said quietly, but if they do die, at least they will die fighting instead of running. At least they will hurt the enemy before they fall. That is the human way. The speaker was silent for a long moment. Then it turned to address the full chamber. The council will observe this human battle group. If they succeed, we will discuss further military cooperation. If they fail, it trailed off, but everyone understood. If the humans failed, the coalition would continue its slow retreat until there was nowhere left to run. Remained seated as the other delegates filed out of the chamber. He stared at the holographic star map still floating in the center of the room. A red marker indicated the system. Soon it would be filled with ships, and soon after that, human ships would arrive. He closed his eyes and thought of Captain and Admiral. He thought of the thousands of young men and women aboard those 40 ships, heading toward almost certain death. He hoped they would prove him right. He hoped humanity's reputation for stubborn violence would be enough. Because if it was not, then the galaxy would fall to the swarm, and Earth would be next. He opened his eyes and stood. There was work to do, preparations to make, and in 6 hours the galaxy would learn what humans were truly capable of when they went to war. The bridge of the Indomitable hummed with quiet activity. Officers sat at their stations, monitoring screens filled with data and tactical information. At the center of it all stood Captain, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the... She was a compact woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Jump complete," announced the navigation officer. "We are now in the system." the lit up with stars. But it also showed something else. Thousands of red markers representing enemy vessels. They swarmed around the 7 planets of like insects around dying animals. In the distance, a few blue markers struggled to retreat. Those were the coalition defenders. There were less than 200 of them left. "Get me a count," said. "Approximately 11,000 vessels," said the tactical officer. His voice was steady despite the numbers. "Multiple ship classes, bioorganic construction. They are currently consuming the remains of 4. Nodded slowly. 11,000 against 40. Those were bad odds by anyone's standard, but she had read the history books. She knew about battles on Earth where small forces had held against overwhelming numbers. Sometimes they won. Sometimes they died, but they always made the enemy pay. "Signal the fleet," she said. "Battle formation Echo 7. Launch all fighters. Prepare nuclear strike packages." "Captain, incoming transmission from the Coalition fleet," said the communications officer. "It's commander of the collective." "Put it through." The split. On one side remained the tactical display. On the other appeared an alien face. Commander had 4 arms, 6 eyes, and a shell-like head that gleamed under the lights of his own bridge. He looked exhausted. "Human vessel," said. "I am commander. I command what remains of the defense fleet. You must retreat immediately. The enemy force is too large. You will be destroyed." "Noted," said calmly. "We will not be retreating." His eyes widened. "Did you not hear me? There are 11,000 enemy ships. You have 40. This is suicide." "Commander, with respect, you have been fighting the way your people fight wars. We are going to fight them the human way. I suggest you pull your ships back to a safe distance and observe." "The human way," sounded angry now. "There is no human way. There is only the way of war, and war requires numerical superiority or superior technology. You have neither." Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We have something better. We have experience killing things that should not be killed. Now please, Commander, move your ships back. I would hate for you to be caught in our opening attack." She cut the transmission before could respond. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humanity could do. "All ships report ready," said the tactical officer. "Fighters away. Strike packages armed and ready." "Target the largest cluster of enemy ships," ordered. "Fire everything." The Indomitable shuddered as it released its weapons. Missiles streaked away from the human fleet, hundreds of them, followed by projectiles moving at incredible speeds. The other human ships did the same. For a moment, space lit up with the glow of engines and weapons fire. The swarm reacted quickly. They turned toward the human fleet, thousands of bioships accelerating to attack. But then the first missiles arrived. Nuclear fireballs blossomed among the vessels. Each explosion consumed dozens of ships. The biological armor that protected them from energy weapons meant nothing against the raw heat and radiation of nuclear fire. "Direct hits," reported the tactical officer. 800 enemy vessels destroyed in the first salvo. "Launch second wave," said, "and get me those fighters in position." Across the fleet, launch bays opened and disgorged hundreds of small fighter craft. Each was piloted by a single human, protected by nothing more than a thin hull and their own reflexes. It was insane by coalition standards. Most species used drones or heavily armored assault craft, but humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best weapon was a determined person in a fast ship. Lieutenant led the first fighter squadron. He was young, barely 25, with quick hands and quicker instincts. His fighter screamed through space at speeds that would kill most aliens. The G-forces pressed him into his seat, but his modified body could handle it. All human pilots underwent enhancements to survive the acceleration. "Eagle Squadron, form up," he said into his comm. "We are going in close. Remember your training, fast passes, hit and run. Do not let them swarm you." "Copy that, Eagle Leader," came the responses from his squadron. They dove toward the fleet. The bioships fired back, launching organic projectiles and acid sprays. But the human fighters were too fast, too agile. They wove between attacks, firing their own weapons at point-blank range. Plasma cannons burned through hulls. Missiles exploded inside bioship cores. Targeting computer locked onto a large vessel. He squeezed the trigger and felt his fighter shake as missiles launched. They struck true, and the bioship split apart, leaking fluids into space. He pulled up hard, barely avoiding debris, and selected his next target. On the Indomitable's bridge, watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. They were trying to surround the human fleet, using their numbers to overwhelm. But her ships kept moving, never staying in one place long enough to be trapped. They fired, retreated, circled, and fired again. It was a strategy called swarm and fade that human navies had used for centuries. "Enemy is closing to boarding range," warned the tactical officer. "Let them," said. She touched a button on her command chair. "Sergeant, your troops ready." In the lower decks of the Indomitable, Sergeant checked her helmet seal one last time. Around her stood 200 Marines in powered armor. Each suit made its wearer strong enough to bend steel and fast enough to dodge bullets. They carried weapons that ranged from plasma rifles to good old-fashioned shotguns. "Marines are ready," Captain said. She was a stocky woman with scars on her face and 30 years of combat experience. "Let those bugs try to board us. We will show them what close combat means." They made their move. 3 bioships broke away from the main swarm and accelerated toward the Indomitable. They intended to latch onto the hull and inject boarding organisms. It was their standard tactic, one that had worked against dozens of coalition ships. But the Indomitable was not a coalition ship. As the vessels closed, the human carrier's point defense opened fire. Cannons spewed thousands of rounds, shredding the approaching bioships. 2 exploded before they reached the hull. The third made contact, its organic tendrils wrapping around the carrier's armor. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Damage Control. "Enemy boarding organisms entering the ship." "Sergeant, they are all yours," said calmly. "Led her Marines to the breach point." They could hear the before they saw them, a chittering, clicking sound that echoed through the corridors. Then the creatures appeared, each one the size of a human, with too many legs and mandibles that dripped acid. "Fire!" shouted. The corridor lit up with weapons fire. They charged forward, fearless and mindless, but the Marines held their ground. Plasma bolts burned through carapaces. Shotgun slugs shattered limbs. When they got too close, the Marines used their armored fists and combat blades. Caught one creature by its mandibles and twisted hard, snapping them off. She threw the broken thing aside and shot 2 more. Around her, her Marines fought with brutal efficiency. This was not clean. This was not civilized. This was war the way humans had always fought it, close, bloody, and personal. "Boarding organisms eliminated," reported. "Deck 7 is secure." "Good work, Sergeant," said. She turned her attention back to the larger battle. The human fleet had destroyed nearly 3,000 ships now, but more kept coming. They had to break the enemy's will to fight, make them understand that attacking humans was a fatal mistake. "Tactical, load the special package," she ordered. The tactical officer's hands moved across his controls. Special package loaded and ready. "Target their command ship," said, "the big one at the center of their formation." A command vessel was 10 times larger than the Indomitable. It coordinated the swarm, directing thousands of individual ships. Coalition forces had tried to destroy command vessels before, but they were too well protected. Humans had a different approach. The special package was a single missile, but it was not like the nuclear weapons humanity had been using. This missile carried a biological weapon, something human scientists had developed specifically to fight the. It used the swarm's own biology against them, a virus that would spread from ship to ship through their organic communication networks. Fire ordered. The missile launched. It accelerated toward the command vessel, weaving through defensive fire. A dozen ships moved to intercept, but the missile was too fast. It struck the command vessel's hull and detonated, releasing its payload. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the command vessel shuddered. Its skin changed color. It began to convulse. And then it died, all life aboard ceasing in seconds as the virus consumed everything organic. The effect on the swarm was immediate. Without the command vessel's coordination, the individual ships became confused. Some continued to attack, others fled. A few turned on each other. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos. All ships pursue and destroy, ordered. Do not let them regroup. The human fleet surged forward. They hit the disorganized from multiple angles, destroying hundreds of ships per minute, and his fighters screamed through the enemy formation, leaving explosions in their wake. The coalition ships, seeing what was happening, and joined the attack. 6 hours later, it was over. The system was littered with debris and floating biomatter. Of the 11,000 ships, less than 1,000 escaped. The human fleet had lost 4 ships and taken damage to several others, but they had won. On the Indomitable's bridge, allowed herself a small smile. "Signal Admiral, tell him the system is clear, and get me a channel to Commander." When appeared on screen, he looked shocked. All 6 of his eyes were wide. "How?" he whispered. "How did you do that?" "We fought to win, Commander," said simply. "Not to survive. There is a difference. I suggest your people learn it." The news of spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every major network carried footage of the battle. Analysts studied the recordings frame by frame, trying to understand what had happened. How had 40 human ships destroyed over 10,000 vessels with minimal losses? It everything they knew about warfare. In the Coalition Military Academy on Prime, screens showed the battle to students from 100 different species. They watched in silence as human fighters dove through enemy formations at speeds that should have killed their pilots. They saw nuclear weapons tear through bioships that had resisted energy weapons for years. They witnessed Marines in power armor fighting warriors hand-to-hand inside ship corridors. "Madness," whispered one student, a floating jellyfish-like being. "Pure madness." "No," said the instructor, a veteran of 50 campaigns. "Not madness, strategy. The humans understood something we forgot. War is not a game. It is not about rules or honor. It is about making the enemy stop fighting by any means necessary." On a planet made entirely of crystal formations, the ruling council gathered in emergency session. They were ancient beings, their bodies formed from living crystal that stored memories going back millions of years. They had seen countless wars, but nothing like this. "The humans used biological weapons," said one elder, its voice like wind chimes. "They boarded enemy vessels. They accepted casualties that would be unthinkable to civilized species. These are war crimes." "Are they?" asked another elder. "Or are they simply effective tactics that we are too afraid to use ourselves?" "You suggest we should copy these barbarians." "I suggest we should consider why they won, when we have been losing for 10 years. The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to expel humanity from the coalition immediately. Others argued that Earth might be their only hope for survival, but all of them felt the same creeping fear. Humans were dangerous, not because they were strong, but because they were willing to do things that civilized species would not. In a research station orbiting a neutron star, scientists studied the battle recordings for the 100th time. She was a thin woman with tired eyes, Earth's leading expert on xenobiology. The coalition had asked her to explain human combat effectiveness to their military command. She typed her report slowly, choosing each word carefully. "Human effectiveness in combat stems from biological and cultural factors that are unique among coalition species. Humans evolved as persistent hunters on a dangerous world. They have high pain tolerance, redundant organ systems, and psychological mechanisms that allow them to function under extreme stress. Where other species retreat when facing certain death, humans often attack more aggressively. But biology alone does not explain their victories. Human culture has refined warfare over thousands of years. They study historical battles the way others study art. They teach their children about war through stories and games. They memorialize soldiers and honor sacrifice in ways that seem primitive but create a society willing to fight when others would surrender. Most importantly, humans do not view individual lives the way other coalition species do. They understand that soldiers die in war. They accept this. They plan for it. A coalition commander who loses 15% of their force considers it a catastrophic failure. A human commander considers it an acceptable cost if the mission succeeds. This is not cruelty. It is pragmatism. Humans fight wars to win them, not to minimize casualties. They will sacrifice thousands to save millions. They will destroy today to preserve tomorrow. Other species see this as barbaric, but it is simply a different calculation of value. Stopped typing and stared at her screen. She had left out the most disturbing part of her findings, the part that made her hands shake when she thought about it. Humans had been preparing for galactic war since before they joined the coalition. They had studied every species' weapons, tactics, and weaknesses. They had built fleets in secret. They had developed biological weapons, cybernetic enhancements, and planet-killing weapons, not as a response to the threat, but as a general preparation for any galactic conflict. Earth did not trust the peaceful galaxy it had found, so it had armed itself for the war it expected to come eventually. She added one final line to her report. Recommendation: the coalition should accept human military assistance. The alternative is extinction. On Earth, in a military command center buried deep underground, Admiral reviewed the same battle footage that the galaxy was watching. He sat alone in his office, a cup of cold coffee forgotten on his desk. He was an old man now, with gray hair and a face marked by old burns from a battle fought decades ago. He remembered that battle clearly. That had attacked a human colony world before Earth had joined the coalition. There had been no warning, no negotiation. The swarm had simply arrived and begun consuming everything. Had been a young captain then, commanding a destroyer. He had fought for 3 days while civilians evacuated. His ship had been destroyed, but he survived. 200,000 colonists had not. That was when understood what the galaxy really was. It was not the peaceful place the coalition pretended it to be. It was dangerous, hostile, full of things that wanted to kill you. And if humanity wanted to survive, it needed to be more dangerous than anything else out there. So he had built fleets. He had trained soldiers. He had prepared for war while the coalition talked about peace. And now, finally, the galaxy was starting to understand why. His terminal chimed. A message from Ambassador opened it. The Coalition Council wants to meet with you. They have questions about our tactics. Some are calling them war crimes. Prepare to defend our actions. Smiled grimly. War crimes. They used that term for anything they were too afraid to do themselves. He had heard it before from people who had never faced true extinction. He typed his response. Tell them I will attend, and tell them I will explain nothing. Either they want to win this war or they do not. The choice is theirs. 3 days later, stood before the full Coalition Council. Every seat was filled. Every species in the galaxy had sent representatives to hear what the human admiral would say. The chamber was silent as he walked to the center platform. You asked me here to explain human tactics, began. His voice was rough, worn by years of shouting commands. I will not waste your time with justifications or apologies. Instead, I will tell you a story. When I was young, I commanded a ship defending a human colony. They came. We fought them. We lost. 200,000 civilians died because we were not strong enough, not ruthless enough, not willing enough to pay the price of victory. I learned something that day. I learned that the universe does not care about fairness or rules. It does not care about honor or mercy. It only cares about who survives and who does not. You have been losing this war for 10 years. You have lost worlds, fleets, and trillions of lives. And why? Because you fight the way civilized people fight. You minimize casualties. You follow rules of engagement. You try to preserve enemy ships so you can study them. You treat war like a sporting match where everyone shakes hands afterward. They do not shake hands, they consume. They multiply. They exist only to spread and devour. You cannot negotiate with them. You cannot reason with them. You can only kill them. And your solution is to become like them, asked the delegate, its crystal body glowing with anger. To abandon civilization and embrace savagery. No, said flatly. My solution is to win. That is the only thing that matters in war. Not honor, not rules, not how many people survive. Winning. Because if you lose, all the civilians you tried to protect die anyway. All the rules you followed mean nothing. All your civilization turns to ash. He paused, looking around the chamber. You want to know about war crimes? I will tell you. Letting your people die because you are too afraid to fight dirty is a war crime. Losing a war you could have won because you valued enemy lives over your own is a war crime. Watching worlds burn because you would not do what was necessary is a war crime. Humans committed war crimes yesterday. We used biological weapons. We accepted high casualties. We fought in ways you consider barbaric. And because we did those things, 10,000 ships are dead and system is free. You tell me which is worse. The chamber erupted in argument. Some delegates shouted in agreement. Others demanded be arrested. The speaker had to slam its desk repeatedly to restore order. Admiral, it said finally, you claim human methods are necessary to win this war. But if we adopt your methods, do we not become monsters ourselves? Maybe, said, but you will be living monsters, and that is better than being dead civilized people. He turned to leave, but Ambassador's voice stopped him. Admiral, please stay. The Council has more questions. Turn back. He saw standing at the human delegation seat. The old ambassador looked tired but determined. Council members said, Admiral is not asking you to become like humans. He is asking you to let humans do what we are good at. You have scientists, diplomats, and builders. We have soldiers. Let us fight your war while you maintain your civilization. That way, everyone survives with their values intact. And what will you ask for in return? The delegate's voice was suspicious. Power, territory, control. Nothing, said. We will ask for nothing except the right to continue existing. Because if they win, they will come for Earth next. This is not your war or our war. It is survival for all of us. The chamber fell silent. Delegates looked at each other, communicating in ways humans could not understand. Finally, the speaker rose. The Council will vote on whether to grant humanity full military authority in this conflict. The vote will take place tomorrow. Until then, this session is adjourned. As the chamber emptied and stood together. Think they will vote yes? Asked. They have no choice, said. Fear is a powerful motivator. They fear but now they also fear us. They will choose to have us as allies rather than enemies. And if they vote no, then we fight anyway. Earth does not need permission to survive. Nodded, he understood. Tomorrow the galaxy would make its choice. But either way, humans would do what humans had always done. They would fight. They would adapt. They would win. Because that was what it meant to be human. They did not think the way individual creatures thought. It was vast, spread across thousands of ships and millions of organisms. It processed information from 100 battles at once, calculating strategies based on pure survival instinct. And now, for the first time in centuries, it felt something new. Fear. The humans had killed 10,000 of its vessels more importantly, they had done it easily, efficiently, with tactics they had never encountered before. The biological weapon that destroyed the command ship was particularly troubling. It suggested humans understood biology better than they understood human biology. This made humans the primary threat. This shifted its strategy. 60% of all forces would now focus on destroying humanity before humans could spread their dangerous ideas to other coalition species. The first target was obvious. A human colony world on the edge of coalition space. Population 4 million, minimal military defense. It would be easy to consume. They sent a swarm of 30,000 ships. Governor stood on the balcony of his office, looking out at the city below. New was a beautiful place, with tall buildings of glass and steel surrounded by green parks. Humans had spent 50 years building this world, turning a barren rock into something worth living on, and now it was going to die. His assistant, a young woman named Bora, approached with a tablet. "Governor, the evacuation fleet has arrived. They can take 1 million people. The rest will stay and fight," finished. He was a stocky man with gray in his beard, a former soldier who had retired to civilian life, but he had never really stopped being a soldier. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours. "And how long until reinforcements arrive?" Bora hesitated. 4 days. Admiral is sending the Indomitable in a battle group, but they are too far away. Nodded slowly. He had already done the math. His small defense fleet had 12 ships. Against 30,000 vessels, they would last maybe an hour. Then the colony would be on its own for 4 days. It was impossible. But humans had done impossible things before. "Send a message to all citizens," he said. "Civilians with families can evacuate. Everyone else reports to their designated militia stations. Tell them to bring anything that can be used as a weapon, and get me a channel to Captain." An hour later, his face appeared on the communication screen in the governor's office. She looked worried. "Governor, I just received your message. You are not seriously planning to defend the colony with militia forces." "I do not have a choice," Captain said. "We cannot evacuate everyone in time, so we fight." "With what? Civilians and hunting rifles?" "With whatever we have." Pulled up a holographic display. "This colony has mining lasers that can burn through rock. We have industrial chemical plants that produce highly explosive compounds. We have construction mechs designed to lift heavy equipment. And we have 3 million angry humans who do not want to die without a fight." Was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, that same cold smile she had shown Commander. "You are going to weaponize your entire colony." "That is the plan. Can you buy us some time?" "I can buy you 96 hours if I push my ships hard," said. "But after that, you are on your own until relief arrives." 96 hours is enough. We will make it work." After the call ended, went to work. He divided the colony into defensive sectors. He assigned civilians to militia units based on their skills. Miners became demolition experts. Factory workers became weapons manufacturers. Farmers who used chemical fertilizers became chemists mixing explosive compounds. The evacuation ships left with 1 million people, mostly families with young children. The remaining 3 million stayed, some because they chose to fight, others because there simply was not enough room on the ships. All of them understood they might die. But they also understood something else. They were human, and humans did not surrender. Sergeant arrived with 200 Marines 18 hours after the warning. She had volunteered to stay and help organize the defense. When she saw what Governor had done, she laughed. "Governor, this is completely insane. I love it." She walked through the streets of New and saw civilians preparing for war. A group of miners had mounted their industrial lasers on truck beds, creating mobile weapons platforms. Factory workers had converted their assembly lines to produce simple but effective explosives. Someone had even figured out how to turn agricultural sprayers into flamethrowers. "It will not be pretty," said, "but it will work, maybe." "It will work," said firmly. "I have fought with less and won. These people have the advantage of defending their homes. That makes them dangerous." They arrived exactly on schedule. 30,000 bioships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately began their approach to Nu. The colony's small defense fleet moved to intercept. Captain commanded from the Indomitable. She knew her 12 ships could not win this fight, but she did not need to win. She just needed to buy time. "All ships scatter formation," she ordered. "Make them chase us. Lead them away from the colony as long as possible." Her fleet split up, each ship heading in a different direction. The swarm pursued, trying to surround and destroy them. But the human ships were faster, more maneuvering. They fired their weapons and then ran before they could respond. Lieutenant led his fighter squadrons in hit-and-run attacks. They would dive into the formation, fire everything they had, and then escape before the enemy could focus on them. It was exhausting work. The pilots flew for hours without rest, surviving on stimulants and sheer determination. "Eagle Leader, I am low on ammunition," reported one pilot. "Then use your ship as a missile," said. "Eject before impact." "Copy that." The pilot flew his fighter directly into a vessel at full speed. The explosion destroyed both craft. Seconds later, the pilot's ejection pod was recovered by a rescue shuttle. This was how humans fought, with everything they had, holding nothing back. For 96 hours, fleet danced around the swarm. They destroyed over 5,000 enemy ships but lost 8 of their own. Finally, with ammunition exhausted and ships damaged beyond combat capability, gave the order to retreat. "All ships fall back to Coalition space. We have done all we can." The remaining 4 human ships jumped away, leaving Nu to face the alone. On the colony's surface, Governor watched the enemy descend. Thousands of bioships entering the atmosphere, their organic forms glowing with heat. They began landing in the open fields outside the city. "Activate all defenses," he ordered. "Everyone to their positions. And remember, we just need to hold for 4 days. Admiral is coming." The first warriors emerged from their ships. They were hideous things, all claws and mandibles and too many legs. They moved in waves toward the city, expecting easy prey. They found something else entirely. The first wave hit the city's outer defenses and died. Mining lasers cut them down by the hundreds. Explosive charges buried in the ground detonated, throwing bodies into the air. Industrial mechs, piloted by construction workers, crushed the creatures under massive metal feet. Sergeant coordinated the defense from a command post in the city center. "Sector 3, they are flanking you. Redirect your mining lasers to the eastern approach." "Copy that," came the reply. It was a civilian voice, nervous but determined. They adapted quickly. They began attacking from multiple directions at once, trying to overwhelm the defenders. More bioships landed, disgorging thousands more warriors. In Sector 7, a group of farmers held a warehouse filled with chemical fertilizer. When they broke through their defenses, the farmers detonated the entire building. The explosion was visible from orbit. It killed the farmers and 2,000 warriors. In Sector 2, factory workers fought hand-to-hand when their ammunition ran out. They used tools, pipes, and their own fists. Many died, but they took warriors with them. This was not clean warfare. This was desperate, brutal survival. Days passed. The colony's population dropped from 3 million to 2 million, then to 1 million, but they held. Every street was contested, every building defended. They consumed the outer districts of the city, but the core remained free. On the 3rd day, a bioship landed directly on the governor's building. Barely escaped, leading the survivors to a new command post in the underground tunnels. How many do we have left? He asked. 800,000 civilians, reported. Maybe 200,000 still combat capable. The rest are wounded or too young to fight. And the hard to count, maybe 50,000 on the ground, more landing every hour. Looked at the map of the city. Most of it was red now, marking controlled territory. Only a small section in the center remained blue. We cannot hold much longer, he admitted. We do not have to, said, pointing to the chronometer on the wall. Admiral arrives in 6 hours. 6 hours, laughed bitterly. I guess we can last 6 more hours. They lasted 7. When Admiral's fleet arrived in system, they found new surrounded by ships. The colony itself was barely recognizable, most of its buildings destroyed or consumed. But in the city center, human defenders still fought. All ships assault formation, ordered from his flagship. I want those off my colony now. The human battle group, 20 ships strong, fell upon them with terrible fury. They had seen what happened to Nu. They had watched humans die while they were too far away to help. Now they were angry. Ship-to-ship combat lasted 3 hours. They fought desperately but could not match human weapons and tactics. When the last enemy vessel fled, sent to the surface, Sargent met them in the ruins of what used to be a park. She was covered in burns and blood, most of it not her own. Behind her stood maybe 300,000 survivors, many wounded, all exhausted. Sergeant, said the Marine commander from the relief force, what is your status? Looked at the officer and smiled. It was a tired smile but genuine. We held, sir, just like we said we would. Later, in the underground command post, Governor stood before Admiral. The old Admiral looked at the Governor with respect. You lost 2.5 million people defending this colony, said quietly. Yes, agreed. But we did not lose the colony, and we proved something important. What is that? That humans do not need warships and plasma weapons to fight. Give us shovels and angry hearts, and we will still make the enemy bleed. Nodded slowly. News of Nu's defense was already spreading across the galaxy. A human colony had held against overwhelming odds for 4 days using improvised weapons and civilian militia. It was impossible. It was insane. It was very, very human. And the galaxy was starting to understand that when humans fought, they did not just fight to win battles. They fought to win wars, no matter the cost. The Coalition Council chamber was filled beyond capacity. Every species, every faction, every government had sent representatives. They came to witness history. The vote would decide the fate of the galaxy. Ambassador stood before them, his hair grayer than it had been just months ago. Behind him, a holographic display showed Nu before and after the battle. The before image showed a beautiful city. The after image showed ruins. Members of the coalition began, you have seen what humanity can do. We destroyed 10,000 ships. At Nu, civilians held off 30,000 for 4 days with improvised weapons. We have proven we can fight. Now I ask you to let us do more than fight. Let us end this war. The delegate's crystal body pulsed with agitation. You speak of ending a war that has lasted 10 years. How can 40 human ships accomplish what our combined fleets could not? Not 40 ships, said. He touched a control and the display changed to show Earth's solar system. All of our ships, 8,000 vessels prepared and ready, and more importantly, a strategy that will end the threat permanently. What strategy? Demanded the reptilian delegate. Admiral stepped forward. He had not planned to speak, but the moment demanded it. We are going to attack the home cluster, 3 star systems where their population is concentrated. We are going to destroy the itself. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The speaker struggled to restore order. Impossible, said Commander, now representing the military. The core systems contain over 500,000 vessels. It would be suicide. It would be suicide for you, said bluntly. But humans do not fight the way you fight. We have developed a weapon specifically for this mission, one that will end the war in a single strike." "What weapon?" multiple voices asked at once. Scientist stood. She looked nervous, uncomfortable with so many eyes upon her. "We call them Nova Lances. They are devices that destabilize stars, causing them to expand rapidly. Not a full supernova, but enough to sterilize every planet in a system." Horror swept through the chamber. A delegate made of pure energy flickered with shock. "You would destroy entire star systems, kill billions of lives." "Yes," said simply, "if that is what it takes to save trillions." "This is genocide," the delegate said. "We cannot allow this." "Then you will die," said coldly. "They have already killed trillions of your people. They will kill trillions more. This is not genocide. This is amputation. We cut off the diseased limb to save the body." The debate raged for hours. Some species supported the human plan, others called it barbaric. But slowly, fear won over morality. Every delegate knew the truth. Conventional warfare had failed. They could not be negotiated with or contained. They had to be destroyed completely. Finally, the vote came. It was close, but it passed. "Humanity is granted full military authority to conduct operations against the swarm," the speaker announced. "May the ancient stars have mercy on us all." 3 weeks later, the largest fleet in galactic history assembled at the border of space. 8,000 human ships formed the core. Coalition forces contributed another 2,000 vessels. Commander commanded the coalition contingent, having volunteered for the mission after witnessing human tactics firsthand. Captain stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now the flagship of the invasion fleet. Around her, officers prepared for battle with quiet efficiency. They all knew what was coming. Many would not survive, but that was acceptable. Victory mattered more than survival. "All ships report ready," the communications officer announced. "Admiral sends his regards," said another officer. "He is commanding the second wave from the Vengeful." Nodded, had wanted to lead the first wave but had convinced him to hold back. If the first assault failed, someone needed to survive to continue the fight. "Begin the jump," ordered. Space twisted, reality bent. 10,000 ships vanished from one place and appeared in another. They emerged in the core system. Before them hung 3 stars, each orbited by dozens of planets. Every planet teemed with life. Every space between planets was filled with ships. 500,000 biovessels turned toward the invaders like a single massive organism. "Deploy fighters," said calmly. "Launch Nova Lances, all ships engage the enemy." Lieutenant led the first fighter wave. He had survived and knew. He had killed thousands of. Now he flew toward the largest concentration of enemy forces in the galaxy, and he was not afraid. "All fighters, remember your training," he said into his calm. "We are not here to win a fair fight. We are here to buy time for the Nova Lances to reach their targets. Hit hard and fade. Do not try to be heroes." His squadron dove into the formation. Behind them came thousands more fighters, each piloted by a human who understood they might not come home. The battle that followed was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships carved through the swarm, trading hull armor for time. Nuclear weapons detonated every few seconds. Biological projectiles splashed against human shields. Ships died on both sides, but the humans kept pushing forward. Sergeant commanded a boarding action on a massive biostation. Her Marines fought through corridors filled with enemy warriors, using flamethrowers and plasma weapons to burn a path to the station's core. They found themselves facing a node creature similar to the one at. "Plant the charges," ordered. 30-second timers, everyone out. They ran as explosions chased them through the corridors. The biostation shuddered and began to collapse. Steam barely made it to their shuttle before the entire structure exploded. "Station destroyed," she reported, returning to the Indomitable. But the most important battle was happening far from the fighting. Three small ships, each carrying a Nova lance, pushed through the chaos toward the three stars at the center of the system. They were piloted by volunteers who knew they would not survive. One of those pilots was a young woman named. She had lost her family at New. Now she flew a ship toward a star, carrying a weapon that would destroy an entire system. "Target lock achieved," she reported. Her voice was steady. "Beginning final approach." Ships swarmed around her trying to stop her. Her shields failed. Hull breaches opened, but she kept flying. "Nova lance away," she said, then softer for New. Her ship exploded seconds later, destroyed by weapons. But the Nova lance continued forward, drawn by the star's gravity. It struck the stellar surface and burrowed deep. In the other two systems, the same scene played out. 3 Nova lances, 3 stars, 3 sacrifices. On the Indomitable, scientists monitored the readings. "Stellar destabilization has begun. All ships need to retreat immediately." "All vessels withdraw," ordered. "Maximum speed. Get clear of the system." The human and coalition fleets turned and ran. Behind them, the swarm pursued, not understanding what had happened. They thought the humans were retreating in defeat. They were wrong. The first star began to swell. Its outer layers expanded, growing hotter and brighter. The effect was gradual at first, then accelerated. Within an hour, the expanding star had consumed the closest planets. Within 3 hours, the entire inner system was gone. The spread across millions of organisms suddenly understood. The humans had not been trying to win a battle. They had been destroying the entire system, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The 3 stars expanded simultaneously, their radiation sterilizing everything within their systems. 500,000 ships died. Dozens of planets were consumed. The itself, its consciousness tied to specific locations, began to fragment and fail. In its final moments, the experienced something it had never known before. Not fear, not pain, but understanding. It understood that humans were the ultimate predator. They did not hunt for food or territory. They hunted for survival, and they would burn the galaxy itself to protect their species. Then the died, and with it the swarm. Across the galaxy, ships suddenly stopped moving. Without this coordination, they became confused, attacking each other or simply shutting down. Coalition forces moved in and destroyed them easily. Within 72 hours, the swarm had ceased to exist as a meaningful threat. The war was over. 2 weeks later, Ambassador stood before the Coalition Council once more. The chamber was quiet. Every species present looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "You saved us," the speaker said. "You ended a war we could not win. The Coalition owes humanity a debt we can never repay." "We ask for no debt," said. "We fought because we had to, because the would have come for Earth eventually. This was survival, not charity." "Still," said Commander, "you showed us what we had forgotten, that sometimes, to preserve life, you must be willing to take it. That mercy toward enemies can be cruelty toward friends." "We showed you what we are," corrected. "We are not heroes, we are survivors. We do what must be done, no matter how terrible, and that should frighten you." The delegate's crystal form pulsed. "It does frighten us. You destroyed 3 star systems. You killed billions. You proved you are willing to burn everything to win. How do we trust such power?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but firm. "You do not have to trust us, you just have to understand us. Humans will fight for our friends. We will die for our allies, but we will also destroy our enemies completely and without mercy. As long as you are not our enemy, you have nothing to fear. And if we become your enemy," smiled, it was not a cruel smile, just honest, "then you will lose, because humans fight to win, always." The vote to grant humanity permanent membership on the Coalition Security Council passed unanimously. No one wanted humans as enemies. Everyone wanted them as allies. 10 years later, Captain, now an admiral herself, stood on an observation deck overlooking Earth. Beside her stood, still working on xenobiology projects. "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked. "Does it matter?" replied. "We did what was necessary. The galaxy is at peace. No species has started a war since the Fell. Because they fear us." "Fear creates peace just as effectively as love," said. "Maybe more effectively." Below them, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. Billions of humans went about their lives, unaware that their species had become the galaxy's ultimate deterrent. The phrase, "do not make the humans get involved," had become common slang across hundreds of worlds. "I heard Ambassador retired," said. "He did, went back to farming on some colony world. Said he was tired of politics." "And Admiral?" "Training the next generation of fleet commanders, making sure humanity never forgets how to fight." They stood in silence, watching there. Somewhere in the galaxy, Lieutenant was leading a patrol of the neutral zone. Sergeant was training new Marines. Governor was rebuilding new, all of them working to maintain the peace they had won. "Do you think the peace will last?" asked. Thought about the question carefully. She thought about the battles she had fought, the lives she had taken, the friends she had lost. "Yes," she said finally, "it will last, because when humans join a battle, entire star systems tremble, and no one wants their star system to tremble."